Hello, welcome back to the Real Arsenal Deal podcast. Rav here, your host as always, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you are doing great. A lot to talk about in this recording. Overnight, there was some pretty significant changes announced by the club in regards to board, the shift in the board members, addition of new board members, Tim Lewis resigning, stepping down, promotion for Richard Garlick. So I'll cover my thoughts on that briefly, because I'm a bit of a nerd with this sort of stuff. I do have a background in the corporate world, in banking and communications and finance. So I do like the corporate restructuring side of things. I'll try not to get too nerdy. I'll just give my brief thoughts on what the club has released. But of course, predominantly, this recording is going to be about a massive clash against Manchester City this weekend. Monday morning, it will kick off here, Melbourne time, around 1:30 a.m. I've got to be honest, I'm still recovering from the 2:45 a.m. kickoff midweek against Athletic Club. And look, it's part of it. It's part and parcel. I've dealt with it before. I'll deal with it again. It's not always easy, and it does as I get older and older. It takes a toll. So yeah, a few more points to discuss. Arteta's press conference, selection, nice headaches, I was about to say, selection dilemmas, but these are excellent things for us to ponder how we chop and change and manage the squad depth and the numbers that we have ready. So I'll touch on that as well. And I also want to, look, I think I'll do this towards the end of the recording. I just wanted to share a few more thoughts, just based on some questions and feedback I've got in the last few weeks about why I do this. Pleasingly, the feedback overwhelmingly I've received is that how I stay quite upbeat and positive, given the state of the world and whatnot. So look, I think what I'll do is I'll save that little piece for the closing minutes of this, because I imagine many of you are not here predominantly for Arsenal related chat. So I'll do all that first, and hopefully stick around towards the end where I can circle back to that, a bit of a wider piece, a wider discussion. And yes, so hopefully that's of some value to you. But what I need to do first is an apology. This is quite embarrassing for me to say. A few days ago, I recorded on my match recording from about Athletic Club, the great victory against Athletic Club in the Champions League. I recorded. Pardon me. So I uploaded. I'm even stumbling over this. This is probably an insight to how embarrassing this whole incident was for me. I published the wrong version. I'd 90% edited it. However, it's going to sound like excuses. I was up very early that day, of course, 2:45 a.m. kickoff. A lot of other things are on during the day. For those who don't know, I'm a stay-at-home dad as well. Those are primarily my commitments, my responsibilities to my kids, my family. I had a short window of time to record during the day before I was needed elsewhere with my responsibilities. And in a rush, in a panic and a tired state, I didn't completely edit it, and I uploaded a version that shouldn't have been uploaded. And I'm really, really sorry for that, because there was a moment of frustration earlier in the recording. Hopefully you have no idea what I'm referring to, because it was brought to my attention by a lovely gentleman who's followed me from the start of this. I don't have consent to use his name or his feedback he sent me. So you know who you are, mate, from all the way in Germany. So thank you so much for making me aware and the reassurance you provided me afterwards. It was a mad state of panic for me. Because that moment it was quite embarrassing, right? And I frantically deleted, redistributed, re-edited late at night on Thursday night when it was meant to be my catch-up sleep recovery time. So I'm really, really sorry if you heard that version. I deeply apologize for that. I've learned my lesson. Still finding my ropes in this. Again, not to come as an excuse. But, I've only been doing this for, say, I think around January this year. I've started, and I'm still trying to learn and become better and more efficient at the post-production process and editing and uploading and whatnot. So that's a long, long way to say, sorry, that took longer than what I thought. I'm sorry for that. If you heard the version that shouldn't have been out there, I deeply apologize, and I'm going to do better. So, okay. yeah, it's really really embarrassing. And look, I'll also say this: there's a part of me that just wanted to shut the whole thing down. I was that embarrassed. I just wanted to curl into a corner, curl into bed, pull the blanket over me, right, and just hope everything just everything just vanishes. But that's not really the way we can really operate, can we? In life, you got to, I guess, front up, show up, and that's what I'm trying to do. So once again, hopefully you have no idea what I'm referring to, but for the small handful of you who did see that or hear that version, maybe you're not even listening because you didn't want to return after hearing that version. So anyway, sorry for that. I will get on with business now with my tail very, very firmly between my legs right now. So on that humbling note, actually, well, that's a good word to use, right? Humble, because we're heading into the Stay Humble derby against Manchester City. There's a lot to talk about on this anyway, because one of the things that's really snuck up on me, what flew under the radar for me, was the transfer of Donnarumma to Manchester City. Like I'm still recovering from my own what I call DT, which stands for Donnarumma trauma, after his performances against Arsenal in the PSG tie in the Champions League. That was only just a few months ago, right? That was only May this year. So in my own way, I'm still dealing with that, because here was the difference. Arsenal was so damn good, despite all the injuries and everything else that was happening at the club, and the lack of options, the lack of bench strength. We gave them everything. I maintain this. That opening 20-25 minutes in Paris, it was on like Donkey Kong. We were incredible. We played as well as I've seen. Like the players were primed for it. They believed, Arteta believed. We threw everything. The only reason we were kept out is Donnarumma. It's as simple as that. The way Odegaard struck that ball, that's a goal 99 times out of 100, 98, 99 times out of 100. That's a goal. It takes genuine world-class, elite-level, big match moments, big match keepers to keep that out. And there's only a small handful of them in the world. Donnarumma just happened to be one of them. And look, I will say even Courtois in the previous tie against Real Madrid, he certainly had his moments too. We had to work damn hard to eventually beat him, and I'm so pleased we ended up putting 5 in the net against Real Madrid. But Donnarumma was immense. He's not someone I usually associate with Manchester City, with the style that Pep plays. I haven't really followed their matches too closely. I know they've had a couple of losses, and they themselves are integrating more players just like we are. They've got a couple of injuries. Cherki's injured, I believe. That new midfielder, he's looked very impressive on the brief highlights I've seen. Reinders, is that how you pronounce it? I probably botched that. My apologies. But Donnarumma being in there, like he's a presence, right? And so often sport can come down to mind games. It can come down to moments like we're very aware of him, and him between the big sticks. He's an imposing figure. So what I'm a long way to say this is that what I'm hoping this does is it's almost helpful in a way to have a pretty much a brand new front three. Gyökeres, Eza, and Madueke, that they don't carry that sense of what happened in Paris. And maybe I'm over analyzing this. Maybe I'm making too much of it, of what it is, because it's a fresh slate for them. It's a fresh opportunity that hopefully we're not too nervous when we come one-on-one and we overthink the shot, we overthink things, hoping we just strike the ball cleanly, take our shots on goal, take our chances. Because I'm still quite confident heading into this match. I think Arsenal are primed. I know I made a pretty similar bold prediction heading into the Liverpool match, which we lost, and that has its own reasons why. However, heading into this match, I'm quite confident. It's a good time to play City. They had the match Thursday evening. It's that weird thing that UEFA do in the first match day week of the Champions League. They do the Champions League matches Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday nights. The City only returned from Italy against Napoli. I think they won quite convincingly in the end, so they weren't too troubled or too tested there. We've had a couple of days extra to rest and recover from returning from Spain, so hopefully that plays into our favour as the match goes on. And of course, we've got the bench now. We've got the options to be able to turn the match. It's just such a stark difference to where we were a few months ago. I know I keep banging on about that PSG match, and I know I made a lot of the Donnarumma thing, but But it's just, it's one of those things where if you looked at our team that day, it's almost unrecognizable if you look at that bench. And compared to just fast forward a few months, how the club has powered up, how we've leveled up, it really is a testament to all involved. That starts at the ownership. They've invested, they've backed the club, made the right appointment with Andrea Berta. They've empowered him to do his thing. They've sought advice from Arteta. What do we need? Like, where have we come short, Mikel? What is it you would like us to do and invest in what areas? And the 8 new players are a testament to that. There's even Hincapié, who I know he came on late in the match against Athletic Club, but I know very little about him. However, I'm so excited to see him when he does integrate into the team and start to do his thing. He joined right on deadline day, and then the players are off for 2 weeks right on international duty. So even up until that point, I thought it was an outstanding window. After the Eza deal, that to me, that was the cherry on top. That was the jewel in the crown type signing where we really leveled up in attack. And then we went and purchased Hincapié. It's to me, it's just a whole new level of ambition. That's what I'm trying to say, and that starts with the ownership. And I'm really looking forward to seeing like how these players come and go. When's the time that Mikel's going to make the changes? I imagine it's going to be a very similar 11 to what we've seen in the last couple of matches, because on the horizon midweek we've got the Carabao Cup kicking off this week against Port Vale. So I imagine that's going to be a significant level of rotation. You might even see an entirely different starting 11, so to speak. I imagine like from the back to front, from Kepa onwards, and I imagine we're going to see the likes of Lewis Skelly, Hincapié perhaps as centre half in place of Gabriel. So they'll all get their time. But for this match, I really do think it's going to be a similar 11. The one point, I think, I'm just checking my notes because Arteta did mention returning players, Odegaard, Saka, and look, he's not going to give much away, right? He's not going to come out and say definitively that they're ready, they're going to play. Same thing with Saliba. I imagine Saliba will play this one. As amazing as Mosquera has been, we know the threat that Haaland poses. Haaland versus Arsenal is kind of box office now after what's happened in the last year or two. And strangely enough, City seemed rattled by Arsenal. It was really bizarre. I know I've spoken about this on previous recordings. Is that out of nowhere there was just such spite, animosity towards Arsenal. The way they celebrated that draw last season when it became 2-2 and the fallout from that, and Haaland losing his head, he was throwing the ball into the back of, was it Gabriel's head or was it White? I can't quite remember. But the way he threw it into their head, they weren't even looking. You know, he picked the ball out from the back of the net, tossed it at them. The way he was ranting and raving post-match and stay humble to Arteta was strange. Like, where the hell has this come from? We're in their heads out of nowhere. And it's one of those things where it's one thing, look, if we've beaten them to the title, if we've lifted the trophies over them, I get it. There's that spite, animosity, right? But Arsenal haven't quite done that yet. However, just they seem to just not like the fact that we're up there now, that we're a threat, we're a major contender, we're a challenger. It was just really, really bizarre to watch that, because that spite it's not shared from Arteta. I generally believe it's not a two-way street. I think it's predominantly coming from City's point of view, and like Arteta and Guardiola have an excellent relationship, and I imagine that will continue. However, on the field, I haven't even mentioned Rodri yet. Like Rodri, he made some strange comments that the prior season as well, like in their victory lap after they won the title. Like he made it about Arsenal, saying that Arsenal only came to the Etihad that day for a draw, and the way they celebrated the draw, it speaks to. Look, I'm paraphrasing here, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the gist of what his message was, that it showed the mentality that we were just content with a draw when they would have gone for the win, and that's what makes them champions. Again, I'm paraphrasing. I'm sorry if I've got that wrong, but that was the sort of messaging I believe that was being received, that Arsenal were content with the draw, and we celebrated that result like it was a win. But then the irony is not lost on me. The way they celebrated that 2-2 draw last season, I mean, they were losing their minds post-match. I get it. Everyone loves a late goal. I mean, me as much as anyone, I'm off the couch celebrating. Like if you can salvage 1 point from 3 with a stoppage time equaliser. Of course, I get all of that. However, just the level that it went to, that Haaland stuff post-match, and Arteta's not even doing anything. He was just out there doing just what he does every single match. He shakes hands with the players, his own players, the opposition players, and he's just, that was just routine stuff. And Haaland losing his mind, it was just so bizarre. Really, really bizarre. So there's a fair bit of spice in this. I love the battle between Gabriel and him. It's just brilliant. But I actually enjoy this side of it. Football needs this. It's become so sensitized and so sanitized afterwards. I was spoilt. I followed the club since 1995, and I grew up in that Ferguson-Wenger era, Vieira versus Keane, Henry versus Van Nistelrooy, and the Martin Keown, right, against Van Nistelrooy, that match against Old Trafford when Van Nistelrooy missed that last minute penalty, hit the crossbar. It's box office stuff. Like, I actually think the game needs this. Of course, to an extent. I'm not saying this is just free license to treat each other like in a very poor manner. What I'm saying is that we need these rivalries, this level of spice. And I actually really look forward to these games. And bringing it back to my opening point, I think this is why Saliba will play. Saliba and Gabriel, they actually have an excellent record against Haaland. And Haaland is in about as good as form as he's been, I believe. He's been scoring everywhere. He came off the international break. He scored 5 for Norway alongside his international teammate Odegaard. So it's something I'm really looking forward to. I think Arteta, similar to how he lent into experience against Athletic Club and having those senior bodies across the pitch, Marino, etc., I think he's going to do similar. Out of the injured players, from this is just my read. It's not based on anything that I know. Look, I have no information, of course. I'm just an amateur podcaster all the way here in Melbourne, Australia, right? So it's just my gut feel. I think Saliba will play. I think he's been ready, and because Mosquera has been so damn good that we haven't felt the need to rush Saliba back in. Mosquera has been outstanding, and he's certainly going to continue to be a regular first team feature. For this one, as harsh as it may sound, I get it's not an easy conversation to have with someone like Mosquera, who has been immaculate, to say, sorry, mate, I'm going to sit you down for this one, bring in Saliba. But this is elite level sports, elite level football. You can feel the energy within the dressing room. You can feel the team unity. They know what we're trying to do here. I imagine as difficult as those conversations are, this is why Arteta's paid the big bucks, right, to manage these personalities and to manage these players accordingly. So I think Saliba comes back in. Saka, to me, is not really in contention, especially recurring hamstring injuries. We've got to be really, really careful with him. So I think we will continue with Madueke, who has been excellent as well, a breath of fresh air. Eza on the left, Gyökeres to start, who scored a hat-trick against City the last time he played them, a hat-trick in the Champions League earlier this year. So he's ready. He knows the battle that awaits him, and I'm just hoping we continue to feed him early, like we have been the last match or two, because good things are going to happen. In the middle, though, Odegaard. Yes, look, it's one of those things where a shoulder injury, it's if you can manage the pain, if you can manage the painkillers, but pre-match, the soreness, he can play. If it's a matter of, do we risk it? If he's available, I think he should start. I think in a match like this, he would be absolutely chomping at the bit to get stuck in, to be involved. If not, I do think it's going to be Marino. It's going back to my earlier point again, that senior experience, a senior professional, can handle the temperature, can handle the occasion, just like he did against Athletic Club. I do believe that's what we're going to see. So it's going to be largely a similar 11. At fullback, I know we have options there, and just one of the things I've been mentioning the last few matches that I'm just keeping an eye on. It's early days, I know, it's early in the season. Touch wood, this continues, but the minutes of Calafiori and Timber, that's just something in the back of my head that I'm just keeping an eye on, because we do need to manage them. Timber in particular, it's just a bit of a shame White continues to have these recurring injuries. Every time we think that he's on the verge of returning, maybe there's a little setback or something at training or a niggle that's just causing some further caution. But I'm really, really hoping he's back sooner rather than later, because Timber's minutes are going to have to be managed. But then again, we've powered up with Mosquera. Mosquera's also played some minutes at right back, and he looked seamless. He looked fine. So perhaps is there a way here? Is there a way that if White's not able to get into the matchday squad, can we have that timeshare 60-30 sort of split between Timber and Mosquera at right back? How good is this? How good is it that I'm even putting forward these kind of options? Because look at the squad, look at the bench strength we have, and there's so many players I haven't even mentioned yet. And we still have the likes of Jesus, Havertz, who are still out of the picture for the time being, but their return in the coming months. Like we're going to get to a point where like you're going to have some hard conversations with certain players about not even making the substitutes bench. I mean, this is just a different Arsenal. It's so pleasing. So I've rambled on a little bit here because noting that there's a few things I want to cover. So in terms of prediction, I've covered selection, but in terms of score, look, I do think they're going to score somehow, some way that they do tend to find a way. Arsenal have not conceded a goal in open play. The only goal we've conceded so far this season has been that world-class free kick. So that's testament to our defensive strength, our defensive unit. I'm predicting 3-1 to Arsenal. That's just me. Now that I put it out there, I've had a bit of a moment of doubt and doubting myself. But hopefully it's a resounding win. I think it's an excellent time to play them. And we're just ready. This squad just, to me, it screams out that they're primed and ready. They want these contests. We're not overawed by the occasion. We're not like lamenting, oh, look at this tough start we've been dealt with, going away to Old Trafford, Anfield. We've got St James's Park next week against Newcastle. Like, I don't sense any of that. They're just like, whatever it is, like whatever, wherever the journey takes us, we're here, and it's all part of it. If we want to lift that major trophy at the end of the season, we want those great medals around our neck. We want it all, right? You're going to have to navigate these moments, and I just feel the squad is ready. Arteta is ready. I'm really looking forward to the game. Not looking forward to the kickoff time, right? But that's just all. It's all part of it. I wouldn't do this if I don't love it. Like I love this club. I love talking about Arsenal. I love reading people's opinions on Arsenal in this sort of setting. And I just really enjoy this little community. And so it's brilliant. It brings me a lot of joy, and it's why I keep doing it. So I'm confident that we're going to have a nice Arsenal victory. So before I get to the end of the piece that I flagged earlier, I'll just note the announcement from yesterday from Arsenal about the board changes. It seems to come really out of nowhere because, and it seems that way to me as well, because just not too long ago we collectively in the media as well, right? We're talking up how amazing that Eza signing was and how integral Tim Lewis was to that acquisition. There was that famous board meeting that Wednesday afternoon when Eza had called Arteta early in the day, and he was about to sign for Tottenham, and Arteta's just basically said to him, look, there's a board meeting, the owners are in town, Josh Kroenke's in town, just hold off for now, and I'll get back to you later. And from there, from what I understand, what's been revealed is that collectively there was that sign-off at board level in that meeting that we're going to do this, and it was Tim Lewis who leveraged his excellent relationship with Steve Parish, owner and chairman of Crystal Palace, to make that transaction happen. They have a business relationship that we leveraged, and so soon after the deal came together, it was finalised. So Tim Lewis, his title being executive vice chair. So what that reflects is it's someone who's actually very active in the day-to-day management of the club. And Tim Lewis, from what I recall, when I remember, he was brought into the club. He was thrust in there around COVID time. There's a lot happening at that time, of course, globally, yeah. And KSC, Kroenke's being based in America, and they have a massive portfolio of sports teams, right? I'm probably going to omit some of them here, but I know they own the Rams. Colorado Rapids, I believe, is their MLS, their football team, their soccer team. Denver Nuggets, I believe there's an NHL franchise as well. The name escapes me right now. And then, of course, there's another massive side of their business portfolio, their property management business, the SoFi Stadium. So they're stretched thin, right? Arsenal, as important Arsenal is to us, right? In terms of their portfolio, Arsenal is just one piece of the puzzle, right? So they needed someone that they knew and trusted closer to the club, closer to the ground, resides in London, big Arsenal fan, someone they have a long history with. And Tim Lewis, from what I understand, has been their long-term legal advisor. key to a number of transactions, and acquisitions they have made over a long time. And the circumstances of Tim Lewis coming in, yes, it was COVID, but also there was just some rumblings around the way certain executives at the time were conducting themselves. There were some questionable business decisions being made. The Nicola Pepe transaction, it's never really come out what actually went wrong with that, but there was some issues around that and some discovery work, some investigative work that needed to be done around that. And I think, you can read between the lines here that shortly after Tim Lewis came in, that there was another reshuffle, restructure, and Raul Sanllehi exited the club. So you can kind of put two and two together with that. And Tim Lewis and Arteta and Vinay at the time and Edu, they all worked very, very closely together. And so the club wouldn't be where we currently are without the influence and role of Tim Lewis. It does seem odd, though, that all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he's exited. I read the David Ornstein article on The Athletic. If you haven't, I would highly recommend checking it out. There was a very interesting description from James McNicholas, Gunner Blog, who I'm sure you all know, right? Because let's be honest, if you're watching me or listening to me, you're well aware of the big boys, of the big Arsenal content creators and podcasters. James being one of them, co-host of the Arscast. So he referenced that something to do with like an abrupt, abrasive nature of Tim Lewis, and ultimately it may have cost him. That it cost him his position. So look, it's really interesting wording. I really read a lot into this stuff. I used to formulate these types of communications way back in my banking career. I had a brief tenure where I was issuing communications on behalf of the bank I was employed with to major institutions, major journalists and publications. So wording is everything. Word choice is everything. So I'm always fascinated by the way sentences are structured. So that there's something in that. It seems a bit out of the blue, right? Because someone who's been so integral for so long, then to exit, and in doing so, pardon me, not Arteta. What did I just say? Richard Garlick. Sorry for that. Richard Garlick has been promoted to CEO, and that's massive for him because I think he was effectively running the club anyway, but under his previous title as managing director. Arsenal have not had a CEO since Vinay exited about a year or two ago. So it's interesting. Sometimes with the reshuffling of the pack, and you put different terminology, but however it's kind of the same position because to the best of my knowledge, Richard Garlick was effectively in charge of Arsenal on a day-to-day basis as managing director. However, Chief Executive Officer does have a higher esteem to it. It is a promotion, and maybe this part and parcel plays away with Tim Lewis exiting. Whatever roles and responsibilities he was doing on an operational level, maybe that's now fallen to Richard Garlick as CEO. So it remains to be seen. In the grand scheme of things, how does this affect Arsenal? How does this affect Arteta and the players? I mean, when the first whistle blows against Manchester City at the Emirates on Monday morning, this doesn't make any difference, does it? It's just one of those things that it's in terms of stability at club level, at board level, at ownership level. It's kind of what happens with major institutions. And while seemingly it's come a bit out of the blue, maybe it's been part of a long-term process. Maybe it's been part of a plan or revision that the Cronkies at KFC have had for quite some time anyway. Because in doing this, from what I understand, I wrote down 3, but I believe there's actually 4. There's 4 new non-executive board members that they've appointed to the club. All seem to be, or 3 of them at least, seem to be associated with KSC already. So maybe long-term advisors or team members in KSC in their executive team. So they've all been appointed as, and the terminology is important here, they're non-executive directors. What that means is, unlike executive vice chair that Tim Lewis was, that means that they're not really employed on a day-to-day level managing the club. Non-executive tends to refer to that, of course, they're part of the decision-making process. They sit in board meetings, they participate at that level, whether it's monthly, quarterly, or whatever their compliance requirements are. However, day-to-day, they probably have professions elsewhere or jobs elsewhere, and they don't like they're not going to roll up to the club every single day. That's what I'm trying to say. They're not like employed there full time, for example. That's what non-executive directorship refers to. So interesting that the board has expanded like that. It's gone from, well, there's one exit being Tim Lewis and then 4 additions. So very interesting to see like where this goes. Maybe over time, right? Sometimes time tells everything. Maybe in a few years' time, if we see, things really advance with like Emirates expansion of the stadium and whatnot, maybe it'll come back down to moments like this where KC have that on the horizon. And this is all part of it to really expand the commercial acumen at board level to deliver on these strategic objectives. So look, just remains to be seen. Again, the wording was really nice to see that there was a on the Arsenal.com official statement. Josh mentioned our quest, our ambition to win major trophies. It's just great to see that because it's already palpable, right? We wouldn't have done what we did in the transfer market this season if they didn't believe that, if they haven't shown that ambition. So it's just nice to, again, just have that reiterated in that statement that we're here to win. We're here to win now. And so it's just, look, it's an exciting time to be an Arsenal fan. It's just, it really is. I keep banging on about this. It's about as strong as a team as I've seen in my 30 years. I'm following the team. We've got contingency plans. We've got different ways of playing. It's not just squad numbers and squad depth. We can mix things up. You saw like just the impact of having Martinelli on the left instead of Ezard the other night. Like it's just a different style of playing. It's just different strings to our bow. It's really lovely, really lovely. And I'm quietly confident of what we're going to do this year. And I heavily believe, and I believe we'll get the job done against Manchester City. So look, I think what I'll do is I've rambled on over half an hour here. So what I will do is I'll bring that part of the discussion to a close. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to just cover a few extra points at the end here as I flagged earlier. So hopefully you stick around. If you don't want to, that's fine. Please consider liking and subscribing on YouTube, or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, a review would be most grateful, please. That would really help out with engagement and visibility. Thank you so much. So the reason I wanted to touch on a few things at the end is that in exchange with this lovely gentleman in Germany that I had the other day, and so sorry I missed your message to begin with, because for some reason on my Instagram I can see if someone responds to an Instagram story, I can see that in my messages, but sometimes just a DM, otherwise it just sits in this other folder. Look, I'm showing my age here, right? I'm not very tech savvy, but it's in like hidden requests. And I'm so sorry I didn't see that because I would have loved to have responded earlier. But he asked me, look, a lot of the times you guys hear me refer to things such as be mindful of what you consume. And I always end the podcast with like, look after yourself, look after your well-being. And I thought it's very timely that I just expand on it a bit more, because I have been asked, like, what does that mean, Rav, when you say be mindful of what you consume? And the timing is probably important here as well, because I saw the club has put out an excellent initiative about suicide prevention on match days, and having a space for supporters to seek help, seek support in that private, confidential forum. I think that's outstanding, an absolutely outstanding move by the club. Really proud of them for doing so. If you need something like that, I implore you, please seek that service. If you're not in London, if you're somewhere else, of course, there are many other avenues that you could take to seek help and support. And if it's of any help to you, I make myself available. If I can help in any way for any challenges, everyone is struggling, everyone is going through different things and different aspects of their life that we will have no idea about. Everyone you pass in the street, in the supermarket, everyone has hidden demons that they're battling. And please just try and be mindful of that with your interactions and try and be kind. And if you can give out any help to someone, I just feel we're obligated to do so. So that's why I'm saying this. I'm in a position to help. If you need anything, if you just need someone to chat or just listen to, please by all means reach out. If I can offer anything, that you may feel would be beneficial to you. The point of this is to say, when I say be mindful of what you consume, I'm saying there's so much happening in the world. There's a lot of darkness. There's a lot of things going wrong. Especially it's getting worse and worse as far as I can tell. And what I find to do just to keep myself together, I tend to lean into things that bring me joy. Arsenal is absolutely one of them. It's why I do this so frequently. You may have noticed that there's been a bit of an uptake in terms of activity on the channel, in terms of my recordings and my YouTubing, and I'm showing my face here, and I'm putting the videos to YouTube, the videos to Spotify. I lean into things that bring me joy, because ultimately, if for me to do what I want to do and show up for my family, for my wife, for my sons, my circle, the people that matter to me, I need to be optimal, right? So there's so many things that I try and do. Otherwise, I practice. I have many healthy practices, the way I eat, I train every morning, the gym. So I've got a lot of other practices around that, and sleep, and I try and dial in as many things as possible. However, ultimately, there's so much stuff happening in the world, right? When I say be mindful of what you consume, it's the stuff around, if you finding your energies being drawn in different places that don't put you in a good state, if you're arguing a lot online, on Twitter, I believe it's a cesspool lately. I steer clear of it. Comment section, online arguments, all the clickbait stuff, rage bait, the way they use Arsenal. I've covered that before as well. If you're finding it's not a good usage of your time, if it doesn't put you in a good state afterwards, please listen to that. Please listen to those signals. You can make different choices. You can make alternative choices. Not every community space is like that. Like I try not to do that here. I try to provide a little bit of extra insight and value, and a bit more of a measured and I hope it's a kinder way. You can tell me whether that's right or wrong, but I try to do things a bit different here and try and add a different sense of value. So the quote that I've always remember is the late great Chadwick Boseman, rest in power, King Chadwick. He mentioned, the reason I reference him is that I'm a huge movie fan. I'm a comic book nerd. I love superhero stuff. It's not something I often talk about because you're here to listen about Arsenal. But when he passed, the quotes that stuck with me were when he was describing Black Panther, and in the anticipation of Black Panther coming out, he mentioned that it's not a distraction, right? Like people, being throwing themselves into content like movies and what. He said it's not a distraction. When done well, it gives you hope. And I truly believe in hope. What I try to do is try and provide hope. And if you lean into the things that bring you joy, ultimately it gives you hope. And it means that you're in a better space with the next interaction. It could be friend, colleague, parent, son, husband, wife, son, daughter, the person down the street at the supermarket. It could be anyone. It just puts you in a better state. Then you have that downstream effect. You interact with them kinder. And that's the ripple effect. They then have that energy that's been transmitted from you. And it permeates, it goes on and on from there. So what I guess is a long way of me saying is that look for hope in the world, because there's plenty around you. And I try and provide that here, and I try and seek hope and gratitude pretty much from the moment I wake up to the moment I fall asleep. And that's just a philosophy I try to live by. And it's been very, very beneficial to me. It's taken me a long time to come to this realization. I'm in a privileged position where I can. I'm 45 now, so with a fair bit of life experience along the way as well. And if I can pass on some of that knowledge to you, and if it's of any benefit to you, I just feel like I'm obligated to do so. It would be remiss of me not to mention that. So I have rambled on a lot this podcast. When I took my notes down before, I thought it'd be about a 20-25 minute recording. I'm approaching 39 minutes. So hopefully you made it this far. And if you did, thank you so much. I'm going to bring this one to a close. Sorry for a few random tangents today. It's maybe a bit of an emotional podcast, maybe more than it needed to be, but I hope you were able to put up with me. Please let me know any feedback, any comments. Do you agree, disagree with me? I'd love to hear any of your thoughts. I read every single word. And thank you as always for the continued support. I'm really blessed to have such a loyal little community here who keeps showing up for me. And it's why I keep recording. So thank you so much. Look after yourselves. I'll be back on Monday, hopefully talking about a resounding Arsenal victory. Until then, take care of yourselves. Reach out if you need assistance. Come on, Arsenal.